Where are we? Kelly Harris hopping on. Good morning, Kelly Harris. All right, Sebastian popping on. All right, everybody's starting to dial in here. First, Jake. Good morning, my friend. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making that quick pivot, man. To pour into my harvest community. These are all, ideally all East Coast people right now. The goal is for us to be a national network. But for the most part, man, these are all people right in our backyard here, business owners, business professionals. I mean, you name it. What's up, dog? What's up, dog?
It's already.
No, all good, man. All good.
Yeah.
So just one reminder, guys, before we get started and I introduce our next incredible guest speaker here. So next, the 28th, as a reminder, is our Harvest Live, right? So make sure, add this in your calendar. We have Phil Heath. He's the CEO of Samaritan Healthcare and Hospice. He's an incredible leader, runs a massive healthcare organization. And we have John Sharp, another friend of mine who owns a very big insurance company, Hardenberg Insurance. He's going to talk about everything that he's learned in high-level leadership, growing his firm, his organization. So we got some high-caliber CEOs coming in for you guys to ask the right questions for, to learn from, come prepared. And remember, just like every call, everything that you do, it doesn't matter whether it's this call, whether it's you going into a meeting, whether it's you going in the church, you listening to a YouTube video, whatever it is, guys, remember, prime your mind, right? We are on here to be present, right? Not go through the motions, have your antennas up, being ready to intake that piece of information that will change your life or the way you look at life or your business, right? But we got to be mentally prepared and ready to intake the information. Be present where you are right now, right? Because I don't want you guys just unconsciously going through life, which is what most people do. That's not us. That's not what we do in the harvest. So, Jake, welcome. So I just want to give everybody kind of a little background here, and it's interesting how I even, I'm a big Eagles fan, but I don't really know too much of all the executive positions, stuff like that. But sure enough, this was about a year ago. Yeah, I think a year ago. I'm in Alpha Athletics, and one of my good friends, Dennis, and he has a partner, Christian. All they do is they train athletes, right? And whether it's middle school, high school, college, professional. And, growing up, I've never was really exposed to kids getting after it outside of like, hey, when it's baseball season, you're just there during practice and games. Outside of that, you're doing whatever you want to do. Well, I'm seeing kids in there at 13, 14, 15 years old, man, and they are getting after it, training. And sure enough, I see this young kid, right? And he's sitting there sweeping. He's like cleaning up like he was working out and cleaning up the gym. I'm like, dude, where do you find kids like this? Right? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, dude, man, his dad's a stud, works for the Eagles, and it's just a great pedigree, right? And I was like, really, dude, this kid's in there. Like, you could see he's working hard, but he's cleaning up, he's sweeping the gym. And I always think about what behaviors I want in my kids as I try and be the best parent that I could be, which we all hopefully are, or best leader you could be if you don't have kids. And then, then I started following, and I saw this big announcement, man, and it wasn't, it was heard everywhere. If you're a sports fan, if you're an Eagles fan, you just saw it everywhere. And when the Eagles, obviously they've been, doing great. And, even some of my great friends are like, oh no, like they know all the back end people. And they're like, dude, he was the major reason why the Eagles are doing what they're doing, bringing on the talent, so on and so forth. So I was like, man, as always, my commitment to you guys is bring, the highest level professionals that I can bring to you guys, to us, so we can all learn from. And Jake graciously, said, hey, man, absolutely. I'm in a new. He's heading into a new phase of his career, and it's everything that he's going to be doing is very valuable and important to each and every single one of us, or all the business people, or everybody that you guys have in your network to add value to them. Be like, hey, there's this guy that I met, high level executive, and this is what he does that can solve your problem. So, Jake, welcome to the Harvest, my friend. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us. Let's just start. The topic of today is identifying talent and creating a winning culture in your company. Now, Jake can speak on everything that you can imagine when it comes to business, and I'm prepared as always because I'm a student just like every one of you guys, I come prepared to these things because I want to get better. I want to grow my business. I want some good questions and some problem solved. But Jay, can you just let everybody know kind of just a little bit of your background? Because some people may not really know, like maybe they're not big Eagles fans, and kind of what you did and what your impact was there, and then transitioning to what you're doing now, so we know how to help you and how to refer you after this call.
Yeah, thank you. That was a nice introduction. It was a little bit probably beyond what you're gonna get here in the next few minutes for me, but um, yeah, I've just finished a almost 13-year stint with the Eagles, um, overseeing all the financial aspects of the football team, working with Howie on all the strategic roster decisions that are made, dealing with compliance and all kinds of other stuff that goes with it. Um, but I made a decision that I felt like I had gotten a little bit stale. Like there's one step up for me in the league, one real step up, and to run a team, and it just didn't feel like that was in the cards based on the way hiring in the league is going. And I felt like I've done this a few times in my career. I felt like I was ready to pivot and try to parlay um, what I've learned and kind of the full body of work in my career into something new. Um, Before I worked for the Eagles, I was a commodities trader for a long time between Chicago and New York. And for a few years out of school, I worked in management consulting for Deloitte Consulting um, after I graduated from Penn. And that's really it. My next venture here is going to be strategic consulting advisory gig that I am starting, primarily targeted in sports at various teams, really focusing, at least in the short term, on college sports who are going through a huge transition um, from like a recruiting based model to more of an asset allocation, professional model. Um, and I just want to take what I have learned about, building teams, building elite championship teams, evaluating talent, um, and all the things that go with what I have been doing every day for the last 13 years and try to help other organizations, whether they're in sports or not, because truth be told, um, we operate, especially in the NFL, in an environment where all of our assets are capped, and everyone really starts with the same kind of pile of chips, if you will. It's not all that dissimilar from poker, I guess, in that sense. And so it is super important to be efficient and wise and have very repeatable processes with how we do things. There's a level of efficiency that you need to be competitive in an environment like that, and I think those are lessons that more broadly in sports can certainly be learned, especially in college where they're trying to figure out what it's like to pay players and how you build a team in that type of environment. But I think in many other businesses, the same lessons certainly apply in terms of how to make good decisions, how to course correct, how to acquire talent, and how to manage people.
So all right. So first, one thing that I want to talk about, and this is, we had a call a few weeks ago. My friend Tony Child, he's a coach, and one of the things that he was talking about is, he gave the analogy of, when you're trying to get that to that next level in your life, whatever that is, if you have the courage to be like, you know what, like no, like I know that there's more, right? And I like enough is enough. I want to make that next step. And he gave the analogy of, how in golf, how a very small percentage of golfers can get to a six handicap, right? And he said that, why can they not get from a six handicap even lower? Like it's like almost next to none can get lower than that. And he was at this gala and he met one of the greatest golf coaches out there. And he said he asked him that question, and he said the guy responded to me. He goes, "You know what it is?" He goes, "When they get that good and they get down to that six handicap, they are not willing to change their swing." and they are not willing to completely change. Like, this is what got them there, and they do not want to risk losing it, right, to get to what, what the next level is, right? So there's a lot of people not even just on this call, but in the world, like, man, high level executive in the Philadelphia Eagles organization, like, man, that's just incredible. That's like the top of Mount Rushmore in a lot of people's eyes. But at some point, you had a thought in your mind to where there's something greater for me in this. Like you even said, like, I don't see like where I'm trying to go within this organization. Like, was this something that was stewing up in you for a long time? Like, can you take us through, like, mentally, like, when did you get to that point where, you know what, like, I got to get out of this comfort zone? Like, this is a great life. I'm making great money. But you know what? Like, what was that mental struggle like that kind of got you? Or was it even a struggle at all? In case there's somebody on this call or listens later that they, you know what, like, enough is enough. There's something greater for me. And I got to leave this good, cushy job or whatever it is to go after something greater than this. Can you share with that experience as
Yeah,
well?
that's yeah. Well, I think my wife is wondering the same thing to some extent. Um, yeah, it started honestly about 3 years ago. Um, it just sort of hit me in a little bit of a flash, like, based on where I am, age wise and everything else. It just hit me all of a sudden, like, what happens if this is the top for me in this business, at this organization or in the league, if nobody sees me as having, the right skill set or value to move up and run a team, am I okay if this is sort of my forever job? If this is my last step. Um, and I felt like my immediate flush reaction was no. There's so many things. I feel like I learn on a daily basis, consume a lot of books and podcasts, um, and I've learned so much at work. And I am, don't have the autonomy to really make decisions on myself, for myself to really execute my own plans. And I want to, I've learned enough, and I trust myself to the point where I've developed all these different frameworks and ways that I would do it. And to have all that and develop it and not get a chance to put anything in practice felt like I was selling myself short there. But of course, having the thought and then acting on it, two different things. I have a wife. I have two children. Well, they're getting big, 16 and 13. My son turned 16 a couple days ago. But my son, the sweeper at Alpha.
Yeah.
Um, but so I basically went through a process. I've pivoted, as I mentioned, a couple other times. And honestly, the pivot from trading into sports wasn't an easy one, just in terms of time and sacrifice, because it really took me a while to figure out what I was going to do and sort of how to get here. I started by taking an internship with the Eagles at age 35, living in North Jersey and commuting down here for 11 months, 83 miles each way. Um, but I really wanted to do this, and it's very difficult to get in. I had an opportunity, and my wife, to her credit, she really pushed me to do it. Um, and so so I did what it took. Eventually, I got out of the internship, and I've been here since. And my process over the last few years, as this thought was kind of resonating in my head, like, what happens if? Am I okay, just sitting here basically until someone tells me to leave? Um, and a big part of the process was, um, hitting up my network, talking to people in confidence, but basically just trying to get to the bottom of, okay, if I were to leave and try to kind of force things in my career, shake things up again. If this is a snow globe, I certainly had settled here at whatever, 11, 12, into my 13th year. But what's the upside of doing that? What am I going to do? And what's that transition going to be like? Um, there's a saying that no one's, you never get wealthy being an employee. So I certainly am not, financially, I'm not in a position where I'd say I'm wealthy. I made a good living. I have good benefits, perks. My salary was good. My kids, have grown up around this football team. So there was a lot of comfort there. And from my wife's perspective, it was cool. I get it. And I believe that you could do whatever you think you can, but you're not just going to like jump out of the plane with a parachute, are you? And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that. And then I pretty much did that. Um, so yeah, that part, not easy. The thought is easy. And maybe then going through a diligent process, um, isn't easy, but isn't difficult. But at the very end, the last sort of, yeah, I don't know if you guys ever swear on these things, but
Oh, dude, yeah.
um, all right, yeah. At the very end, I'm gonna fucking do this, and I can't just keep talking about it. I started to feel just like enough already. Like it was like enough talk, and you gotta just do it and kind of pull the trigger. Um, and the other side that went into it, quite frankly, is from a lifestyle perspective. There's unbelievable positives to working for an NFL team. But there's a lot of things you give up too. I mean, for most from training camp report, third week in July, all the way through when the season ends, hopefully in February, it really is a 7 day a week job. It's, hours are pretty long. And so there's, there's a sacrifice on the other side, which for me, not being a career person in football, I've done other things. Um, never felt like totally natural to me to, leave early in the morning, not see my kids in the morning, get home at night, everyone's sort of had dinner, you're just dropping back in on your life. And then, um, my son plays baseball, miss a lot of baseball games and stuff that to me at least mattered just as much as, a lot of the other cool things about my job. And so that was a constant um, kind of give and take there. And I know when I first took this job and I got involved, um, it was clearly worth it to me, and my family was super supportive. And I felt like I was learning, growing, and this was a career that I always wanted to be in. But then I could consciously feel like that balance, was kind of shifting a little bit. And I think what I've noticed is, um, a lot of people wind up a bit on cruise control and they feel like almost like they're on the conveyor belt and everything's happening around them and they don't necessarily have control of their own life at that point. And it's just like, well, whatever happens to me, I'm sort of here along for the ride. I really have never felt like that, and I don't know exactly why. I mean, my dad had the same job for my entire like childhood, took a bus into New York City from where we lived in Jersey. Just one company basically his whole career. Um, and that was really has never been part of my own personal psyche. But I know when I started going through this process in terms of thinking about what happens if I don't advance, my thought process was, are the pluses still outweighing the minuses? And I think over the course of your career, it's very possible that there are, the pluses hugely outweigh the minuses at one point, and then for various reasons, changes in your life, changes in your job, it could be your boss, could be a million different things. The pluses no longer outweigh them, and then the question is, are you going to do something about it? And I think that um, a lot of people just don't realize or they sort of forget that they're in charge of their career and they make those decisions and you can do something about it. So just tying this back because tying this back to more of like a tangible um, work type of thing, or I'm a huge believer just in terms of process and the value of having a repeatable way that you do. I mean, most things. It's not like I live my life like military precision, but I think when you do have a good process that you believe in, and you go through it, it really takes a lot of the pressure off because you don't feel like the result is what's going to truly determine in your mind whether you made a good decision or not. You know, you kind of put in the work, you follow the process, and you just have to assume that the results will follow. And in this case, I spent a lot of time going through all this and getting myself to a point where I was very comfortable that, you know, this was the right thing, that I needed to change and I needed to shake things up. And, you know, I was going to bet on myself. So whatever happens, yeah, I feel like if it doesn't work out the way that I think it will, or the way I hope it will, I mean, hope not a strategy. Um, I'd like to say that I'm more calculated than, you know, the hoping part, but I know why I did it, and I went through the right process. Um, and with all those, for all those reasons, you know, I feel like it's going to be a good decision.
So, guys, man, this reminds me, and I shared this with a few of you. So this goes back to this major lesson, right? Whether it's, hey, you know, you're in the, like, maybe you started this business and you know, like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. Or you just have that thought to where maybe you're doing something you truly don't want to do, which goes back to that Tony Child call too. But if you guys haven't watched this yet, I would strongly suggest it was Gary Vaynerchuk. He did the commencement speech for NYU. And in this speech, he talks about, he talks about he's sharing with the kids. He was like, what I want you to think about, and this is what you don't want. You don't want to happen to you, but this is something that you should think about when you're all buck 20, right? And he always talks about like just you're gonna live forever, right? Like if you're 30, if you're 40, you're still a baby when it comes to life, right? But he was like the one thing you don't want to do, one thing you want to think about, is when you're 120 years old, when you're a buck 20, right? You don't want to sit there and say you have a lot of what ifs. Like, man, what if I did that? What if I did that? Right? You do not want to live life continuing to ask yourself, what if, and never acting on the thoughts that I believe, me, I'm a faith guy. I believe it's God speaking to you. It could be a universe, whatever it is. Like a lot of times there are thoughts that are ingrained in you that come to you that you should listen to. And a lot of people, maybe it's the next level of your business. Maybe it's like, man, what if I stopped just prospecting the small businesses and started prospecting to major organizations? What if I did that? Man, that could drastically change everything for me. So out of all this incredible stuff and that journey, and Jake, I appreciate you being vulnerable and kind of sharing that. But man, that is just a powerful thing. At some point, Jake said, like, man, there is something more, like, what if, right? And he didn't just sit on this what if and live the rest of his life on this what if. He thought about his family, he thought about his lifestyle, but he acted on that. And now he's chasing and pursuing that. And maybe that's something that's relevant to somebody on this call right now who's been just thinking about that what if and never acted on it. So, Jake, now I just have a few. Let's get into, now we're going to really get into some business strategy that I think could help all you guys too. Identifying talent, right? We all know that we can't take our companies to the highest levels without growing through people, right? You need to attract, you need to retain, you need to hire talent if you're truly trying to get to the levels that the businesses that you admire, right? Or the people that you admire that run these businesses and have complete freedom of time to vacation, to enjoy. Why? Because they have great talent in their organization that can still grow their company, not just maintenance it, not just run it. They can still grow their company while they're not there. That is only done by attracting and hiring talent, right? And in the NFL, in the football space, I mean, there is a next level of identifying talent because it's much more than just, I mean, let's face it. Imagine if everybody that you interviewed, when you're really trying to hire talent, they came in with a highlight reel of all the best things that they've done or all the best closings that they had in business over the past 10 years, and it was 5 minutes long, right? And that never happens in the business world, but let's just say it did. You'd be like, without a shadow of a doubt, hiring everybody that showed you that highlight reel, right? Man, you seem amazing. In sports, It's that same shit. And guess what? A lot of these people who have the best highlight reels are complete busts in the NFL. And that could be a complete risk of millions of dollars because you're not dialed in on, man, dude, it's not just the highlights. These are the specific things that we found over decades of experience that can help you get through all the bullshit to truly identify if the talent is what they say it is. So, Jake, could you share with us, like, what that process and what you found helped you identify talent? And can you kind of tie that into not just the sports world, but like how that's relatable to business owners today?
Yeah, there's a lot there. Um, yeah, I mean, I would for us at least in the football world, I would sort of separate to some extent, player evaluation and how that process goes um, versus hiring. I think there's a distinction there of sorts, but then again, there are overlaps. I think in terms of what we're talking about here today. I think hiring certainly depends on the role, but just like in our case, there's always a balance between the present and the future. When you hire somebody, I would say almost always, you're trying to evaluate what they are today and how they can contribute now. But you're also trying to place a bet on what they can become. And I think the part about it, about what they could become, is, people's growth and trajectory is a function of a couple different things. It's a function of them personally, in terms of ability, but also in terms of desire. Do they want to improve? Do they want to get to next levels? Do they have um, a passion and true love for whatever it is that they're doing or you're hiring them to do? Because um, you know I'm sure you all know, like, if you're not willing, hold on one second really quick.
All good.
Yeah, hold on, sorry.
Yep. Just to add to that, real quick, guys. When he talks about, wait, I think he's back on. Back on.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry, I
Good
was
stuff.
didn't wash my son's baseball pants in quick enough fashion for him, apparently. um this is my new life. um um so yeah, I think obviously having the desire to get better is a huge component to actually get better, and I think that that's something um at the team level that we focus on, as much as any single like physical trait, um, is whether they have a love for football, because I think like that component to it is, in a lot of times, the thing that distinguishes those who actually get to where you think they can, and those who just sort of die, with having all the potential in the world and not really reaching those heights. Um, and I could think of players who have ascended very quickly and probably exceeded where some people thought they would. And to me, it comes down to those players had very special, wiring, a unrelenting drive to get better, would do anything, show up early, stay late, put in time when no one's watching. And then I think of other players who were where they were in terms of where they were drafted, or what their status was because of having these elite traits, but were not as much in it to push themselves to the max and see where they can get. They were in it because of what the game, or being a professional athlete, could get them, in terms of lifestyle, compensation, all those types of things. And there's been a lot of really good players who have not had that elite drive and have gotten by just on the physical stuff alone. But I think to truly ascend, you need that combination. And when you're hiring in terms of, a non-sports business, a lot of the same type of thing will apply. I think it's trying to assess where they are right now, what types of traits they have, and how those line up specifically with what you're asking them to do. But also getting to the mental part of how motivated are they to get better, to find other levels, what have they done above and beyond, what is their level of interest or passion for whatever business you're hiring them into, and using those sort of dimensions or metrics as ways to assess in your own mind where this person can get to, and it's fine. Not everyone needs to be CEO. Not everyone needs to be this like hard charging alpha where they'll get to, do anything to get there. That's fine. Like you're not hiring. Everyone you're hiring can't be, an A plus. Like everything is sort of relative. You need a value framework. You need to understand what the job is, and kind of what the resource allocation is and what type of bet you're making on them. But I think that it's those other metrics that you're looking for, if there is some projection involved here. I think and I always go back to having a good interview process and understanding, when you are evaluating talent, your ability to evaluate really is only going to be as good as the process is that you're evaluating them by. And if you have a pretty standard way that you go through these things, hire, questions you ask, the certain same dimensions you're looking for every time. If you're evaluating, really understanding what the position is you're hiring them into, the better you understand that position, I think the better you're going to be able to hire someone quality into it. The issue that a lot of people get into is they really never go through this process in advance, and lay out with specificity, what skills, what role, what training they need for a certain job or role. And then how do you know when you found the right person if you don't actually know what you're looking for? And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of, I've seen in football. But I think all over the place, that's a problem. People jump into hiring. They're like, oh, this person's great. I love this person. I could sit here and talk to this person for hours. Cool. But if that person isn't able to actually do the job that you've laid out for them, or that you haven't effectively laid out for them, being able to talk to them for hours isn't really moving the ball forward for your business. And, so I think that a lot of the big mistakes, hiring, talent evaluation, and all those, the mistake is basically made before you've even hired the person. You just really haven't done the work and put it in a format that allows you to properly hire.
When you talk about passion too, man, and it's so funny. When I was, doing interviews, hiring people within my real estate company or whatever, I just remember there would just be like some questions like, what do you thoroughly enjoy doing that makes you the happiest, right? And some of the answers that I would get had nothing to do with being fired up to grow a real estate business, whatever it is, right? And I just knew right then and there, I'm like, they didn't even like some of those basic questions. You'll find out sometimes that like they'll talk about everything else but the job that you are potentially hiring them to do. This business, like sometimes they'll even talk about, hey, well, my dream is to start this business that has nothing to do. It's like, all right, like you're great, but like you don't have no passion. Like you didn't even talk about anything to do with what I'm trying to hire you to do. And if there is no signs, not even one lick of communication about the passion to do what you're about to hire them to do, and that may sound crazy, guys, but if you ask the right questions, you'll be able to filter through this. That's a problem. If that the last thing they mention is the job that you're hiring them to do, that's a telltale sign right now that they're not going to be passionate and be the person that you want, whether it's leading an organization or whatever that is. But that word passion, man, really stuck out to me. And if you ask the right questions and they don't talk about it, you can identify if they're passionate about the position that you're potentially hiring them for.
Yeah, I think I would also just say, sports or not sports, I think, you hear of a lot of different types of businesses that really where they aim to hire former athletes or people that have played sports and things like that, because I think that whether it's a passion for real estate or a passion for whatever it is, I think if you're a person who is hyper competitive in anything you do, you're trying to win. I think there's a fair bet that if you're in a position where you're hiring someone into a role where you're going to have to teach them a different business, um, or whatever the case may be, that that if you get it right with this person, their natural spirit to compete and not want to lose is going to be the thing that pushes them and keeps them growing and learning, and gets them to their ceiling. Even if they're not coming in with a specific, like, hey, I'm dying to, I've always wanted to do real estate. It's possible you're hiring someone who doesn't even know enough, who's never been exposed to it, who may be phenomenal, but everything they've ever done, they've competed and won and pushed themselves to get better. And you just have the confidence that whatever you pour into them, they're going to take and give you back, a multiple of. I think that's fine too. Like, I think that's a way to evaluate, like, depending on how specific your business is, it may be totally unrealistic to find people who are coming in and saying, oh, your business, you sell doormats. I love, like, doormats. It's the thing I'm most passionate about in my entire life. Like, I highly doubt that that's ever going to be the case. However, if it's a sales role and you're looking for someone, and this person has, made the most of themselves athletically or competitively in whatever thing, I think it's a good bet that they're going to take this on, and they're not going to be happy sucking at whatever it is that you're hiring them for.
Yeah. All right. Next thing I wanted to tee you up with. Bringing it, so one of your roles was managing, from what I understand, was managing salary caps, like strategizing on contracts and all that stuff, correct? Just to,
Correct. Yes.
so people on here, let's just say you're going to be in a growth phase of your business, you're looking to hire and you're looking to bring on talent. And when I say hire, guys, it can also be 1099s too, right? So hiring doesn't necessarily mean you got to give out salaries. Hiring could be you being able to cast enough of the vision and share with somebody how much they can make and the quality of life that they can have selling for you without you having to give them a salary. And it's a commission base, right? But with your role, in an industry to where everybody, especially when they get the opportunity of sitting at that seat to be in the discussion to be drafted into the NFL, right? These people have massive egos. And on top of that, they're in opportunities to make a lot of money. And there's a lot of NFL teams that can throw millions at them. So, Jake, was there any strategies that you guys used to help negotiate better deals to bring on players that necessarily wasn't just, hey, I'm going to give you the most money and that's going to do the trick? Because this is very important for everybody else, to where I think one of our past speakers talked about the study to where it was either Stanford or Harvard did a study on what were the most, or Justin Deal actually talked about this. The owner of Ritz-Carlton talked about, they did a study on, what were the top reasons people chose organizations, and the sixth reason was money, right? So some of you right now, you have this limiting belief: I can't pay somebody enough money. That's why my business can't grow with the right salespeople that I want, right? What were some strategies that you guys had to negotiate better deals with top talent, Jake?
That's a great question. I think, in terms of on the negotiation side, I think one sort of misnomer, if you will, is that we are trying to, is that like winning a negotiation for us was a goal. I really don't think that that's ever something that we try to do. We try to win on things that are most important to us, but we're always trying to do a fair deal. I think that, winning a deal may help you in the short term in terms of saving some cash, but the damage you do in the long run to the relationship, for us, we're dealing with agents, but then we have to see and live with the player every day. Those things don't work. There may be a financial benefit, but the longer term cost of having a disgruntled player who turns into a disgruntled, sits around his teammates and is talking about how we took advantage of him as agent and he's miserable. Like, those things don't really pay in the long run. Um, and I'm trying to think. I had a thought, and I lost my whole train of thought on the
Yeah,
contract side.
so that's
Yeah,
a good point, though, man. It's like I'm not trying to strike the, Gary Keller in my real estate company, the founder, he always talks about either a win-win or no deal, right? Like, and to your point,
yeah,
like what a great point you made, to where sometimes it's not like, man, I got him for this or I got her for this, because like you just said, man, it's like you think that's like that's like a win in the moment. But and I love the comment down there, Fulgenetti, too. And you got to think of, man, like if you don't think it was a win-win deal and it truly wasn't, do not think for a second that this person eventually is not going to perform at their highest level and go to battle for you.
yeah.
And
No,
I'm
yeah, totally agree with that. I would also say one thing that I would bring attention to is most of the deals that a football team does with players over the course of the year. It's crazy, but over the course of the year, we may have 120 different players under contract, at some point or another. And overwhelmingly, um, most of those are not like a high bidder type of situation. Most of those are players just signing at their, CBA dictated minimum. So price isn't really the way that we're competing in those situations. Most of those situations, we're signing players um, because there's a level of trust. Well, sometimes it's just straight like opportunity players out there. You have a job and you're taking it. But a lot of these situations are player may have multiple teams that are willing to sign them at minimum. The terms are the same amongst teams. And so then the question is, why are they going to pick you? And that's where all the other stuff that you do in your organization and all your track record on how you've treated people, in our case, players or even employees, um, that's one way or one area where it comes back to benefit you. Because for us, one of my roles was I've been like the primary contact with all the agents that we deal with, right? So think of that in a few different ways. I mean, sometimes that's great because I get a lot of good information, and it's a valuable spot where they'll tell me things and it just gives us good intel. Um, but it also is sort of a window into how we're thought of, across the league or relative to other teams. And when an agent is going to, you got to think about for a player, like their resource is their body and their ability, right? And those are, for a period, their ability and their body, for one thing, are ascending. And then depending on the position or, at some point, it sort of hits a peak and then they start coming off. When an agent sends a player to you, they're basically trusting that you're going to take care of this player. You're going to, have the best resources, best people, whether it's strength, whether it's training and medical, whether it's the equipment in the building, whether it's recovery modalities, all these different things. They're basically saying that you're going to take care of the player and you're going to keep them in the best position to keep performing or keep earning, depending on um, whose perspective, the player or the agent. They obviously want the player to make as much as they can, have as good a career and as long of a career as possible. And I think that that's where this trust that is developed, the quality of your organization, top to bottom, all these other types of things are ways to sell and sort of monetize in a sense. Like the contract is the contract, right? And that's going to be the same irrespective of what team it is. But the other things are like non-financial aspects to it that all wind up being huge differentiators and might be the thing that, gets the person, player, potential employee to come your direction. It might be, hey, yeah, we're offering the same as so and so, same financial package, but look at all these opportunities for development we offer. Look at all the upside here. Look at all the ways that we will expose you to different areas and we'll put you in the best position for your next job. And those all certainly have financial benefits to the potential employee. It's like if you're telling someone you're going to give them this unbelievable training, put them in a position, let's say it's a job that's going to pay them, $50,000, and the next job on the rung or a couple jobs later on the rung is $200,000. Would they rather take a job that pays them $10,000 but really does very little to put them in position to get this next job that's like a 6x, 7x, 8x, whatever the number is? Um, or would they go to the place that may pay them slightly less now, but that much quicker they're going to be in a position to be in a much higher paying, better job with more upside? I think that's the kind of all factors into the negotiation. So it's a couple fold. You need to understand what you're offering, right? And the offer doesn't necessarily only have to be financial. In a lot of cases, you're offering your time, you're offering the development within your own organization. All those resources are part of the package. Like, let's be honest, and how you treat people and how others that have worked there say that you've treated them, all of that factors into a decision and are part of a negotiation. So I wouldn't, in a negotiation, I would just, whether you have to write all this out and lay it out and understand kind of what the value proposition is for your business, in addition to the comp package, it's like, yeah, we're offering you the same, or we're offering you slightly less. That is true, but you're getting all this other stuff. Look at the strength of our organization. Look at what these other people have done. I think that just kind of goes into one thing I would say about, negotiations, and what I learned over my time in Philly is just whatever level of being prepared you think you need to be before you negotiate, you need to go past that. And it's like, you never want to be in a position where you're on a call talking to somebody negotiating, or you're kind of right in it and they ask a question, you don't really have an answer for it. So I think it's preparing like every dimension and understanding what may come up. It's putting yourself in the position of the person across the table from you. What is going to be most important to them? What are they going to ask for? Why are they going to ask for it? Are they justified for doing it? And then how are we kind of coming back at that to say, no, that's a valid point, but this is why, our side is more correct. I think that level of preparation and information is a huge part of it, just tying all that kind of together.
Yeah, being able to articulate a compelling vision can get somebody across the goal line. So that's important for everybody. Do you have a compelling vision for your company? If you have the opportunity to bring on talent into your organization, I remember actually this morning saw a message, a video from Steph Curry, and he was talking about, my biggest fear is being unprepared. My biggest fear is being unprepared, right? Are you prepared for that next hire, that next appointment, right? And that comes through systems, processes, doing the reps prior. One last topic that I wanted to get into before we before we sign off here at 8. If you guys have any questions, message me, hit me in the chat, let me know. I'm going to get out of speaker view. If you raise your hand, I will call on you. But you've worked with the Eagles for a pretty long time, and there was ebbs and flows, ups and downs. There's no doubt about that. I've been a Philly fan my whole life. I've rented out the link to propose to my wife. I'm a very big Eagles fan, right? So I've lived and died with the Eagles my whole life. When these times of winning started to occur, we talk about creating a winning culture for your organization. Was there any things that stood out to you? Any strategies that stood out to you that, man, when this started happening, there was a major shift in the energy in the organization, the environment, the mindset of the players, the mindset of the coaches? Was there any practices that people on this call be like, wow, okay, that's relatable to my business? Like, I can start implementing that to build influence within my company. Could you share what that was like?
Yeah. I'd say a few things stick out to me about the differences between good periods in the building and not great periods. I go back to, the locker room is like a very unique place. It's probably similar to some of your businesses where it's like a ultimate hodgepodge of people from different backgrounds, different skill sets, people who may not come across one another in everyday life. and then they're forced to be coworkers, get to know each other, and understand each other. Um, for us, like I think that a big part of that culture and defining culture is being super transparent in terms of expectations and um, kind of what the organization is about and will stand for. Uh, I would say almost every head coach comes in with some degree of what their cornerstone, like core values are. But there is a pretty big disparity between how committed to those core values they are. Um, and,
That
you
was
know, whether,
important right there, guys. That
oh,
was
yeah,
very, very, very important, right? We talk about core values. Hey, it's not just for most companies, it's just signs on the wall, right? It's
yeah,
not.
that doesn't work. People are way smarter than that. And when you are disingenuous with whatever purported core values you have, people know, and that's a bad signal to, you know, whether you're going to live up to what you say you're going to do, and just to how committed the organization is to being what it says it is. You know, I think when you really live by those things, and you make it clear that those aren't just signs on the wall, this is really how we act, and people start to take those on and take ownership of those things. And you know, I think that's important. And I just think when you set your core values, you know, it really goes back to that. Don't just pick stuff that you've Googled and makes, you know, seems like the right thing. It should reflect genuinely how you manage, what, you know, culture you want in your business, and then you need to put that in practice. You know, if honesty is one of your core values and you're constantly stabbing people in the back and being deceitful, why should anything else that you say be taken seriously? You know, and I think that's where you get to.
You hire from your core values, you fire from your core values. Something that I need to get a lot better at too, as far as just being evangelical with them. Yeah, I got a guy, Andrew. He's a leader in our organization. One of the things that he was talking about was, on our weekly meetings, like kind of spotlighting people that are being the example of a core value of our company, right? Like elevating and celebrating them for, like, hey, implementing this core value, because it's something that we know is very, very, very important. And when you want a team to be on operating, like, the best way you can marching forward, well, they need a compass, right? And they need tools to make sure that they're not getting off track. And if you're not, just like anything else, what is leadership, right? Leadership is the number one way to amplify leadership is what? Leading by example, right? So if you have core values and you're not, being those core values yourself, leading by example, just like everything else, it all falls flat. And then people wonder why is our company not moving forward? Why can't we attract people? Why are we losing people left and right? And man, that's cool to hear that, like, an anchor for a lot of these coaches, so important. They come in with core values, and you can tell the seasons when there is not good times in the organization is when you have a coach that doesn't exemplify those core values that they preach. That is a major takeaway for you guys to take for the rest of your lives in your business, and by the way, for your family too. Like, as crazy as it sounds, you guys should have core values for your family,
I agree with
right?
that.
You want your kids to grow up and be able to have your lessons that you instill in their life. So when you're not there and they're out of college, they're out of what, you know what I mean? Like, they need to know, and make it your last name, make it like an acronym, whatever you want to do. But core values is just as important in your household as it is in your businesses too. So, anybody have any questions before we sign off? Anything? Remember, he's worked with the Eagles. I know you're all Eagles fans on here, so if there's anything fun you want to ask, whatever. But I always like to say, guys, don't waste an opportunity to ask somebody at this level, a question. But I know I was very
You don't
prepared.
have to. I mean, if yeah, and if anyone has questions after this, it's totally fine. You can pass out an email, and I'm happy to respond to whatever if something comes up.
All right, guys. Well, listen, Jake, again, thank you so much, my brother, for hopping on here and just pouring into us and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And man, praying for massive success for the next phase of your new career, your new business. And man, I just want to applaud you again for your courage to be the example, to not live what if and just go after it, because that's going to be something that you're going to be able to not just tell your kids about. That's an example that you're going to set, like, hey man, I had this job where most people would have just been like, I'm good, but I knew that there was something more, and I left a job that 99% of people would have never left, and I did this, man. And that's something that's going to instill with them the rest of their lives too. So I just want to applaud you on that, man. That's a great example. And I will help as much as I can, give you some good connections to help you amplify that business too. So thank you so much, Jake.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I
All right,
really appreciate it. Thanks.
all right guys. Have an amazing
All right.
day. Hit me up if you need anything. Harvest Live next week.
Thanks. See y'all.
Invite like-minded individuals, guys. Share. Hit me up and have a great day. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.